Well, hello, everyone. My name is Eric Eichhoff, and I serve as the Associate Director of Alumni Relations at John Carroll. Thank you for joining us for our next installment of the John Carroll University Alumni Author Series. The Alumni Author Series was launched in November of 2020 as a way to highlight those who have written books, articles, poems, screenplays, and other written works within the John Carroll University alumni community. Today, we are joined by Amber Snyder, a member of the John Carroll University class of 2004. Amber will share her new book, Blue Amber, a glimpse in the life of Amber Snyder. Before we start, here's a brief synopsis of Blue Amber. Curious about individuals who live with mental health condition. This memoir takes you through the life of Amber Snyder, who's overcome the odds and devastation that a mental health condition can cause. She shares stories about her childhood, adolescence, and some of her adulthood. Snyder writes about her life, including family, to inspire others to keep going. She explains what a psychotic episode feels like. Throughout the story of her life, Snyder takes you on a journey of triumph and lessons learned. Her inspiration for writing is her stories that open the eyes of others to help eliminate stigmas and hopefully increase the commitment of support from those who live vicariously through individuals who have a mental health condition. Amber, thanks for being with us today. I really appreciate it. And before we jump into our conversation, I want to say thank you for sharing your story with our community. I know that speaking about mental health is not always an easy topic, and I believe it's something that we need to do more of within our larger community. So thank you again. I'm really glad we're doing this today.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So tell us a little bit about why you decided to write Blue Amber.
Right. So I during COVID was looking for something productive to do. And so I was talking to my dad and he's like, well, you should, talk about your life a little more because I think your life is interesting. And so I just thought a little bit about what he shared. And then I was talking to a lady who had a webinar on publishing and writing and publishing. And so I had a one-on-one coaching session with her. And she suggested that I write to gain support or support base for a business that I want to start. And so that's why I decided to write and then go into starting a business.
Awesome. So I know throughout the book, and I had the pleasure of reading it. It's a really well-written memoir. You speak a lot about faith and spirituality. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about how faith and spirituality has impacted your life.
Right. So I'm a pastor. I'm a PK. My dad is a pastor, and his father was a pastor. So it's in our blood. And I've had my bouts with religion, but I am a believer in a greater being, in God, and something greater than us. And my faith and spirituality, I believe, especially earlier on in my life, helped me through a lot of gray areas where I didn't know who to count on, who to go to. So prayer and faith and spirituality really helped me handle my mental health at an earlier age because it started for me at about age 18.
Okay. So how has having your dad and your grandpa in the church, like, tell me about that experience a little bit, and being a pastor's kid, right? PK.
Right. So being a PK, I have 5 siblings, and
okay.
They say preachers' kids and teachers' kids are the worst ones. And so be that as it may, I turned out okay. But being a pastor's kid, being in church, like we had to go to church all the time. And so it was a huge part of our life. But some people say that there's a clash sometimes between religion and medicine, or religion and science. And my parents believe in medicine. We believe in taking medicine to help, using science. God gives us the tools to advance and to help with different complications today. So we believe in that. We don't rely only on prayer. So, the whole faith without, I don't want to quote scripture, but anyways, we rely heavily on prayer, but we also believe in using the tools and the things that God has allowed man to create to improve society. So
awesome. Thanks for sharing that. So I
Mhm.
know one of the other things you talk a lot about in your book is family,
Yes.
and how it has provided a point of great strength. And obviously, you've already talked about your dad a little bit, but also one of great heartache. Can you share a little bit about some of these experiences, both, some maybe that are on the point of great strength side, but also of heartache, that you relate in your book? Can you share some of that with us?
Yes. So for me, my family, I'm blessed to have family, but it's bittersweet, because they have been such a strong part in my life and in my healing. But then as, through the decades, you see how family members and relatives, family members, relatives, close friends, how they grow up and their choices that they made, you see how it turns out for them in their life. And so the same people who were there to support me when I was going through a hard time have made choices that differed. So the way that they were able to support me, I chose to use their support and their help to make decisions that would help me in the future. So for example, I used their support to continue my education. Some of my family members didn't value or didn't use the support that was given to them to continue education. And so now they're in situations where they don't have a degree to fall back on when they have a hardship in life. So it's a bittersweet situation because I have education to fall back on. And when I look for jobs, I completed my degree. I completed higher education, graduate school. So I finished things and I have those things to fall back on and to use. Some of my siblings do have a skill set and a trade, which is great, because they can, always, like my older sister, she's a hairstylist, so she can always fall back on doing hair, or working at a salon. But other siblings have made choices in life that didn't allow them to have something to fall back on, and so it's unfortunate in that way, and it's bitter in that way because it's difficult. I've had a brother who went to jail at an early age, and he's my older brother. He went to jail at an early age. He now thankfully has come out and started his own trucking business, which is successful. And so we're happy about that. But it was difficult when I was younger, knowing that I had a sibling that was locked away. And so it's just situations like that that make, family living bittersweet. And through the decades, you see how people grow and how they change and how, the choices that they make have made their life either easier or more difficult throughout the years.
It really is interesting. Everyone has a family, right?
Mm-hmm.
And of some way, shape, or form, and how the actions or circumstances that someone's family have impacts the individual, whether it be your brother. And I'm sure you learned valuable lessons through that. And it's so nice to hear that he's out and successful and has his own business.
Mm-hmm.
I know that can be that. I'm sure that was a very difficult circumstance.
Oh yeah. He was turned down a lot, and so he had to do something to support himself and his family. So he started his own business. So
that's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you talk a lot about mental health, and that's kind of what the memoir. As I read the synopsis, what the memoir really focused on. I think. First off, thank you again for sharing that with our community. I know it's not easy to speak about, but for those who are maybe struggling with a mental health condition or something that's weighing on them, what advice would you share with people? I know you're not a trained clinician, but obviously you have overcome a lot. What would you share with people who are struggling right now?
Just with everybody, like if you're struggling yourself with mental health, if you're struggling with addiction, even because that's sometimes related to mental health or behavioral health, If you are just a loved one and you know someone who is going through an issue, I just advise you never give up. Like, don't give up on yourself. Don't give up on your loved one. I know firsthand how difficult it is, or how difficult it can be. And there's some days where it's tough. It's really tough, but there are more, for me, thank God, there have been more good days than bad days. And so a coworker of mine just said to me today, I've made it through 100% of my bad days. And that keeps her going. And she shared that with me today. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to use that. Thank you. So I've made it through 100% of my bad days. And so that keeps me going.
I like that. That is a really good way to look at it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad you mentioned that it's not just about those who are, working through their own mental health, but those who are touched by someone who has, who's
impacted by it. Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
I think everyone knows someone, right? Whether they know it for sure, or
or they suspect.
It can be a hidden kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So talk to me about how you share your mental health journey in Blue Amber. Tell me a little bit about why you decided to focus so much on mental health in writing your book.
I focused on it because for so long I did not focus on it. Okay. So I refused to talk about my mental health with people outside of therapists, doctor, psychiatrist, family that knew. And only people in my inner circle knew. And so even to the day that I published the book, there are people, friends in my circle, that had no idea that I suffered from the things that I suffered from throughout my mental health journey. And so I just decided to just open up, because I feel like, one, when I do share, I feel lighter. I feel like a weight is kind of lifted because I'm not hiding it anymore. And then a friend of mine told me, he said, Amber, you should tell people so they know how to help you. And I'm like, that makes sense. That makes sense. And then on the opposite side, it's like, well, if someone finds out and they don't want to be bothered with me anymore, I don't need that type of negativity or that type of person in my life anyway. Sure. So it's kind of both ways. It's a win for me. So.
Well, I'm glad you did. I think it's, like I said, your memoir is very, very well written and very interesting. You really do talk about a lot of different things in it. And I know there are some things you talk about when it comes to race and racism as well. And some stories that, impacted you, centering around race and racism. Tell me a little bit about how race and racism has impacted you, and how maybe that contributed to your mental health or interactions with maybe others.
Right. So it's telling me my connection is unstable, but I'm going to just talk through anyway. So race and racism, me as a Black female, and we see it prevalent today still. And for me, it's unfortunate because we're in 2021 and we're still dealing with issues based on skin color. And it's not only in the Black community, it's majority Black community, but it's because I've made it to other nations, other parts of the world, and it's literally based on how dark or how light your skin color is. And it's really crazy to me that is still able to stop or allow someone to receive or be treated a certain way just because their skin is darker. And so I think I'm happy, one, because it's coming to light more what Black people have gone through in this country. I think it's less about hearing the story of slavery, and more about hearing the injustices that we still encounter today, and how we can come about to a solution to stop those things. And I don't think it's a blame or point the finger situation anymore. I think it's more or less, how do we remedy this situation?
Mhm.
How do we stop this from happening and going on generation after generation? For me, in the book specifically, I encountered a situation where a gentleman came in. I was with some friends, and he came into the room, and he said, "I lost the job to a hard N," and he said the hard N, the N word, and that's the first time I heard it, in a negative way used by someone that was supposedly a friend. And so I froze. I didn't know what to do. I just froze. And so, and you can continue to read in the book about the situation, but that was my first time encountering firsthand a situation where it's just like, wow, okay, this is how you feel about my people. This is how you feel about me.
Yeah.
And so it was in high school, and it was just interesting to look back on that story and think about that situation.
Yeah, I can only imagine how impactful that would be to just hear it, but then also to hear it from someone that you had, thought was a friend, right? There's a lot of betrayal and I'm sure sadness that goes along with that circumstance for sure.
And then you have to carry on. You have to, knowing that you still have to continue on. And so it's not easy.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, I know I want to skip forward a few more years. And every time I talk with an alum doing an alumni author series, I always like to ask about what their John Carroll experience was like. And I know because everyone has a very unique John Carroll experience. Not everyone has the same exact one. But I know that you already mentioned that you were the first in your family to graduate from college, as well as receive an advanced degree, which is absolutely wonderful. Tell me a little bit more about your John Carroll experience and what that journey was like for you.
Yeah, so John Carroll, so freshman year, I just remember coming on campus. I stayed in Dolan. It was an all-girls dorm at the time. I don't know if it still is. I stayed in
Dolan. Under renovation, so.
Okay, good. And I remember joining a flag football team at Carroll, the Dolan Queens. And it's my favorite story about Carroll because we were a freshman team and we were really good, and we made it all the way to the finals. And we played a senior team, and we lost the last few minutes of the game. We lost to the senior team. So I felt included during my freshman year at Carroll because I got involved. At John Carroll, it's a PWI, predominantly white institution, and so it's not a whole lot of minorities. I don't know if that's still the case, but we did have a group for multicultural inclusion or diversity. We had an office for it, so you could go there to meet and do different activities. My time at John Carroll overall was interesting. It was very unique. I didn't start going out at Carroll probably until sophomore year, because my sister, she came on. She was a freshman at Case when I was a sophomore at John Carroll. So she and I started, I would go out with her. She's way more social than I am. So I would start going out with her sometimes. And then that's when I started making more friends outside of my dorm at Carroll. But overall, my experience at John Carroll was very interesting. I'm glad that the professors that I met with professors my freshman, sophomore, and junior year, because when I had a hard time senior year, they knew okay, this isn't the Amber that we know from. So they kind of, stepped in and said, hey, what's going on, and they understood when I shared with them what I needed to share with them. And so not you guys, but John Carroll did have a what is it? Diversity and inclusion. No, a support group for people with disabilities. I forget what it was called, but it was newer, and I only started using it. I think I used it once my senior year, And so I was thankful for that group. I think it's expanded now. And so I would just suggest that you do take advantage of it as a freshman so that they know your situation going forward. But my experience at Carroll overall was, it was good. I wanted to go to a HBCU, but then John Carroll was my second choice. But the
Okay.
HBCU didn't have financial aid. So I'm like, well, I'll just go to John Carroll.
Well, I'm glad you bring up some of the different aspects of John Carroll and that made an impact on your life. We do have a wonderful Center for Student Diversity and Inclusion. It's such a gem on our campus, and we do have a great student accessibility services program too. But I think the hallmark is always our professors, and knowing that you made those relationships with some professors so that they knew something was maybe not the Amber they were accustomed to. I think that's one of the really amazing things about John Carroll and small liberal arts education, where you get to know and have those meaningful relationships with people on campus for certain.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah.
So towards the end of the book, I was struck by something you wrote about the loss after loss within your family. But then you kind of already alluded to it, that you can never really give up. Because once you give up, it's done. It's really hard to kind of get back to where you want to be. Tell us why you felt that, why you never thought you could give up, even when it was, maybe in some of the darker moments of your life.
Again, I think it's the religion and the spirituality piece. I'm growing up in church and hearing over and over and over again the stories in the Bible, of overcoming and holding on and long suffering. You hear those words, you hear triumph, and you hear these key words, and they stuck with me. They just stick with me, and they're ingrained in me. And so I know I got to a point where I was on the medicine and I didn't want to be. I felt I was too young to be in that situation. And it was hard dealing with side effects of medicine. And so I got to a point, and the side effect can be suicidal ideation of the medicine, can be suicidal ideation. I didn't know at that time that was a side effect. And so I did get to a dark point where I was ready to just give up on myself and on everything. And I did attempt at John Carroll, and thank God I was not successful. And of course, because I'm still here right now, but from that point on, I was just like, you know what, it's not worth it. It's not worth me, because I'm a curious person. So it's not worth me not knowing what can happen next for me or for other people. And so I'm glad that I'm here to tell my story today, because, you never know what could happen next for you or for somebody else who hears your story or sees your smile or knows what you're going through and can be encouraged by you.
Thank you for sharing that. I truly mean it. I think, I especially that last part about, you never know how that smile you have or the interaction you have with someone else will impact, that person that you relate to. And, I'm so glad that we are having this conversation right now, because I no doubt feel like this will have an impact onto others who are fortunate to watch this as well. But I really am taken back by like that personal interaction that you may have with someone and how you may help them in ways that you may never know, right?
You may never know. But
it sends that person in the right trajectory, and sometimes not in the right trajectory, but hopefully that smile gets them to a better place.
Yep. So.
And then the final thing, towards the end of your book, I want to say right in like page 70 or so, there's just this really, really good sentence that just really resonated with me. And it's, I live a full life, but I'm a work in progress. I am so glad you shared that. I think we can all learn from it. Tell me why you decided to include that in Blue Amber.
Well, for several reasons, but one, mainly because when I was younger, I asked my dad something like, is my life over, essentially? And he's like, well, the doctor said you can still live a full life. And I'm like, okay, I don't know what that means, but okay. And so for me, it was, at the time, it was like, okay, like I can take control of my life and still do the things I want to do, even though I'm still working on myself,
Okay.
even though I'm still becoming the person I am fully going to be. And so I can still change who I want to be. And so that's why I added that in there, because I'm not like missing out on life because of a mental health illness.
Sure.
So yeah.
Well, I absolutely love it. And
Thank you.
we actually have a campaign here on campus to help students who are dealing with, mental health stuff that is basically about that. It's called, it's something along the lines of I'm a work in progress. And we all are, regardless of where we sit on the spectrum. We are always a work in progress. We hopefully are always learning from, traditional education or being around other individuals. But I thought that was such a great way to end your memoir, towards the end of your memoir, is to include that part of it. So I think it really encapsulated what you're trying to get at through the journey you were on.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah. Yep.
So the last question I have, and I'd be a really bad interviewer if I didn't ask, for those who are interested in getting your memoir, what's the best way that they can go ahead and get Blue Amber?
Yes. So the best way to purchase Blue Amber, and the only way right now, is through Amazon. Okay. You can get it on Kindle, or you can purchase it, the hard copy, the paperback. Okay. And so it's you can purchase it. I think you can just search Blue Amber or search my name, Amber Snyder. I can share. Well, I don't know how I can share the link. How can I share the link?
We will put it down on the bottom of the screen once we go through editing.
Okay. All right. Yep. So that's awesome. The only way right now is Amazon.
Awesome. Well, again, Amber, thank you so much for taking time out of your afternoon to share your journey, share your memoir with us. I am so thankful that we were able to get this done. I know it's been a long. I think we talked about this in maybe March, and you were still on this journey of publishing, and you just published in the last week or so. Is that about right?
Right, about 2 weeks ago or so. Awesome. I just published. Yep.
Well, again, congratulations on that. That you are in a select group of people who have written and published their book. Probably that is not something I will ever do, but congratulations. Okay. I am so thankful we had this conversation.
I am too.
And for all of you, just a quick little bit of information. We have a wonderful array of other programs like this on our YouTube channel. We encourage you to look at them. Our Alumni Author Series, like this one, JCU Junior, our Alumni Continuing Education Series, better known as ACEs, on our YouTube channel, just by searching John Carroll University on YouTube. You can find out about that, and as well as other programs on our alumni webpage, which is jcu.edu/alumni. And then finally, please consider a charitable gift to John Carroll in support of our students, our faculty, and our entire campus community. If you've already made a gift this year, thank you for your generosity. And if you have not, please join me in supporting JCU so that we can continue to deliver outstanding education for our current and future Blue Streaks. You can make a donation by visiting jcu.edu/give. Thank you again for joining us. Take care, be well, stay safe, and onward on John Carroll.